So when you're dismantling it, you really want to have a vise, because some parts need to be taken out and put back in when the body of the pump is either horizontal or vertical. So you want to have a vise, and then you probably want to have another bracket or a swiveling vise so you can mount it on whatever angle you want. How you want to do it? So tools, you need a 10mm socket, and then a 10mm spanner, flathead screwdriver, 14mm spanner, 17mm spanner, 21mm spanner, and a 5mm Allen key. The first thing you want to do is take the drain plug off, which on this one, it's this one at the back. All these pumps seem to use a different cover plate depending on the application, so yours might look different. So that's a 17mm. Take that off. We'll take out copper. These are all going to get replaced, but I'll have to keep it all together to measure the size later. This is your overflow. So this part comes from the injector rail and then back into there. So we'll keep that all on like a shop rag, and as we take it off we'll keep it separate. So then your 10mm socket, going to take the governor arm spring assembly off, so just fully extend that, and then you should be able to take that 10mm nut out. Take that off, and take the whole lot off as one piece. Just keep that spring somewhere it's not going to flick away, get in the eye or something. And with that spring on this side, just going to that up and off. So we have a little nut in there, washer nut. We'll keep all that in one position. You've got your line on top there so you can realign it when it goes back on. So with that overflow off, should be able to just drain, dump it in a container. I've got a bucket down there that I pour all my waste into. Heaps of fuel. Oh. So next step is we have our stop control lever stop screw, the governor throttle shaft stop screw here. You need to take this out so you can get to these Allen bolts, this one here. So in this case I'm going to count the turns. So it's a 10 mil. Eleven and 4 flats. Take the screw out. So get those nuts together, put it in line. So then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. One at the back might be hard to get. Yeah, should be able to get it with an Allen key rather than a socket. Make sure we clamp down. Cool, so once all those are loosened up, press down on your control lever shaft as you lift up the cover. So it's just a little vacuum operated, boost operated thing there, must be boost. Keep all those together. Take out our little seal there. Keep it all in line. And with the top cover off, got our governor shaft here. Just on the end here there's a little C-clip. So I'm going to take that C-clip off and we can remove this little washer spring, remove the governor shaft, and then we'll put that back together, put it on the bench. So I like to have a rag ready when I'm removing little C-clips and things so they don't go flying. I just press down on it. So there's our little C-clip. Then we've got our little top hat spacer, I guess. Little spring that goes on there, and then there should be a little washer up against the shaft pivot. So that washer. Then we take our governor assembly, slide that out of there, and then we're going to put that back together so we don't forget those parts. So our washer goes back on, spring goes on, and top hat assembly goes on, and then we'll put our C-clip back on the shaft. And that's ready. So next stage is going to be remove this governor shaft. So we've got our lock nut on the end here. This one is just a Allen key and a nut. Some of them have a special end piece. So luckily you don't have to make a special tool for this one. What's this one going to be? A 14, I think. So 14mm bolt, 5mm Allen key. Just going to see if I can loosen this off a little bit. There we go. Again, I'm going to count this 14. So it looks like just 14 1/4 maybe. So extract that. Put our bolt back on the end, our nut back on the end. Then we need to put our pump in the vertical position, and we can remove the governor. So we've got our pump in the vertical position with the metering head at the top. Now hold the little shaft that was on that little flywheel. And we're just going to lift it up a little bit and then slide it out so it doesn't fall apart. So shaft and all the little arms are all still in there. And then just underneath that there's a thrust washer against the body, so take that out as well. Keep that together. And then underneath that there's a little square shim. The concave edge goes down into the pump that way. So we're going to keep all those together. So now I'm going to take these fuel lines off. You can take these off at any point, but should probably be one of the first things you do to keep them out of the way. So we've got our 14mm fittings on the head itself. So I'm going to hold on to that with the 14mm spanner. And then the ones on the fuel lines are 17, so we're just going to crack those off. So fuel lines, keep those somewhere safe. So the next step I'm going to do is take out these delivery valves. You need to keep them in order so they go back in the same hole with the same valves and things that you take out. So I'm going to go from the top left, and it's going to be A, B, C and D going clockwise. So that's a 14mm. So you want to be careful of the spring inside there. So keep your spring in the right one. And then inside there's a little valve. Take the valve. There'll be a washer on the bottom. I think that's all that's in there. Yeah. So you've got your connector, spring, and the valve assembly and the washer on the bottom. You want to keep those all in order. So there was A, B, continuing clockwise, this will be C, then our last one. Cool. So the next part is to remove this large centre nut. So this one is a three-sided with a triangular looking nut. I don't have anything to take it off, but I do have a big pipe wrench, so don't tell anyone I did that. Easy. A little bit of marking on the edge of that nut, but it's not the end of the world. So you just have an O-ring on there. This little nut here is a 12mm head, and you take that out when you're setting the timing of the pump. So we'll make a tool up to go in there. It's a 12 by 1.0 thread. So you end up just putting like a tube and something to measure the depth that it goes of the that the shaft inside is moving. So you can do that a number of ways. I'll make up the tool later and show you how I do it. So we'll keep that on our next little line. So our next step is to remove the distributor head. So we'll take our corner bolts out of here. There's 3 flatheads and then a 5mm Allen. So we use a impact driver. Get these ones out. So when you take this off, you need to be careful, there's 2 springs underneath. You don't want to lose those or their little shafts. I'm going to remove this cable. So this is your shut-off solenoid. So we'll lift that straight up. Keep a hold of our springs. And 2 more springs down there. Then we'll take out our pump plunger. And then that's got a little spacer underneath it, or a shim. So you want to keep that shim. So our next step is to remove this governor flap, I guess. So it's got those triangular nuts as well. They're triangular 13. So if you have a spare 13mm 12-point socket, you can grind out 2 of the points and then leave 2, and then grind out 2, leave 2, grind out 2. You just end up with that. You can see it's a 14, so you can see it's 13 top to bottom, side to side sort of thing. So yeah, it's a 13mm there. This is a 6-point. So it's just on the verge of fitting in that. So I'll just grind out those points, or those the flats, every second flat, I guess. And you should be able to get that in there. So I'll put that to the side. Here's our governor bracket assembly, and there's our bolt, and the washer on there, 3 points. You can take them out with a hammer and a punch if you want, because you're only in there quite a low torque. So those are out. We can take the pump, rest of the pump assembly out. So from the pump now, we'll take out the cam plate. So I just use some tweezers because there's a bunch of holes in there. Lift it straight out, make sure you don't catch anything on the way out. So that's your cam plate. So it's got a grooved surface there. So put that next on the list. So looking inside, we can see we've got some rollers there. You want to keep those rollers in their position. You don't want them to fall out at all. So what we need to do next is remove this cover, and then we rotate the shaft until that pin can be taken out from there, and then we can remove these as a assembly. So we'll take out that drive disc in the centre now with the spring. You can just lift that straight up. So there's our drive disc with spring. You can see it locks in. You can see it locks into in there. So we'll put the drive disc with the cam plate. So at this stage we'll remove these plates on the side. There's one on this side, one on this side, and then one in the centre. So this is where your cold start setup would be. This one doesn't have it. The one on this corner is where your timing pin is, and then the one in the middle is sometimes has a pointer. So you just take those off. On the side it's just a plate and an O-ring, so nothing much there. Plate and then an O-ring just goes on the side of the housing. There's no pointer or anything there, you can just sort of look through. So put that on the side. Side here should just come off. So on the opposite side to that one we just took out, is the timing piston cap. So the bit you were seeing on this side was the piston. So when we remove this, there'll be a spring. So we take the cap, catch the spring before it falls out. There'll be a shim in there, so keep all that in place with the with the spring. Take our O-ring out, put that with the one we just took out. So we want to, now we can rotate the shaft. So this is me pushing the piston back and forth. So what we want to do is rotate the shaft so we can push the piston out through this gap. So we can just spin the shaft now. So we're going to turn it so the gap is facing that piston. So turn the shaft so the drive dog there is 90 degrees to the pin. So we've got this little black clip. We'll take the clip off, we can slide the pin out, and then we can remove the piston. There's a pin, clip, put that there. So take the pin out of that little drive pin, so that came out of there, underneath that clip. And then we can slide that out. Then we can remove our piston. Now, add 2 hands to that. So don't drop this other little pin that goes through. That one there. That's what that other pin rides in. And then you got your little plunger bit in there. So put that with the pin. So looking in there, we can see there's a little bit of wear in there, but it's probably alright. Piston looks good anyway, there's no major wear on that end. A little bit of just where it's worn in, but I think that's okay. So then we can remove our plate there with the rollers. We want to do that so the rollers don't fall out. So I'll put that somewhere where that's not going to get any damage, or get knocked over rather. So now we can pull our shaft out, so we'll just push it up from the bottom. So it's not too bad, there's no major gouging or anything in it, so that'll be good. So as it comes out, we've got another little woodruff key in there. This one has just come out of the bottom. There's a little woodruff key. Keep that with the shaft. And then there's a thrust bearing or a thrust washer in the bottom there. Flick that up. Thrust washer. Looks like it's the same on both sides. Keep that there. So just under that gear as well, there's some rubber push drive sort of things. So those come in your kit. With that shaft removed, that's pretty much it. The front of the pump is still in there, so you just take the two Phillips heads out and then you have to remove it totally straight so nothing gets caught up, and make sure the vanes don't pop out, get lost. They use like a piston that fits in there to take it out totally straight. But if it does get caught up, you can use, some pair of pin punches to lift it out. But I'm not needing to strip it down that far, because I'm just going to take this. I'll just take this front seal out, put the new seal in. Still got your stop solenoid and stuff you can take off if you need to take that sort of stuff off. For me, that's enough. Everything I've taken out looks to be in good serviceable condition. There's no sort of undue wear. Your plunger shaft there should be nice and sharp on those edges. Shouldn't show any signs of wear on the shaft. Like that looks perfect. The main shaft, it's got a little bit of wear at the front. I think it must be just on the front of that seal, but not enough to be damaged. It's just I guess where the grit sits in the front of the seal, so the seal's still sealing. Like I can't catch it with my nail or anything. It's nice and smooth. Same as the back where the bushing goes. Plunger there. Looks nice. There's a little bit of like visible scoring, but it's ultra fine. There's no actual wear on it. Where the plunger goes and the shaft and the bushing in the body there, you can see a couple of wear marks. Again, nothing I would worry about. It's maybe a little bit out of round in this little corner going. I don't know what that is. It looks like it maybe even hasn't been wearing there. But these can get worn out of round, and then you either need a new body, or I think you can machine it out and put a new bush in, but don't need to do it on this. And with the expense of it, you might be better off getting a new donor pump, or depends on how friendly your machinist is, I guess. So that's all our parts. So next time I'll just reassemble. I've got all new washers and seals, so I'll just clean each part up, wash it off in some fresh diesel, and we'll reassemble.